Good morning, students. Today I'm going to show you the AC method. There's also videos online for doing this. All right, so we're going to show you almost the most complicated one you can have, meaning it covers all the main pieces that you need to be aware of in using the AC method. So as in all factors, there's two steps to factor and factor out the GCF, the greatest common factor, if there is one, and to factor what's left if possible, because sometimes it's not possible. You might only have a GCF. Okay. All right. So remember standard form of quadratic, ax squared plus bx plus c. So the coefficients a and b and the constant term c. Step one, factor the GCF. I look through three terms. I see that 3 is in common, so I need to factor that out. That's step one. Always. If you don't factor it out now, you'll end up with it in your one of these two binomials at the bottom, and you'll have to factor out at the end, which most students forget to do, which is why I made a note of this down here. So factor it out at the beginning. Plus, you're going to deal with smaller numbers when you're having to multiply a times c together. It makes your life easier. So now I need to ask myself, what two numbers, as it says here, actually, what two numbers multiply to AC? 3 times 1, which is 3, and adds to b. See, b right here is -4. And those two numbers are -3 and -1. What do we do with this -3 and -1 in the AC method? We add an x on each one here, and we're replacing the -4x with the -3x plus a -1x here, or -1x, which is why I have it highlighted and underlined right here. So bring down the 3, you can't drop that off. Open parentheses, the first term stays the same. We're switching this -4x out into -3x minus 1x. That's the 2 you just found right here. And the last term stays the same. Okay? So now we went from 3 terms to 4 terms. Okay, I explained how we broke this -4x and -3x and -1x, put them in the middle every time. Now we have 4 terms we factor by grouping. So these two together, these two together. So what is the GCF of this right here, of these two terms? 3x. What's left when I take a 3x out of 3x squared? X. What's left after I take a 3x out of -3x? -1. Okay. Now I have this pair. I have to ask, what's my GCF? Well, I might say there's nothing here. Okay. Just 1. Well, the problem with this, and this is why I said this covers all the different difficulties in remembering anything you have to remember about the AC method, is see I have this parentheses of x minus 1 here. I have to make this parentheses over here also x minus 1. They have to be the same in order to factor. So right now, this says -x plus 1. It can't say -x plus 1. It has to say x minus 1. So I need to factor a negative out of these two right here. So that's this -1 I'm taking out. And now I get x minus 1, which now is the exact same. So now I've gone from 4 terms down to 2 terms. Remember, terms are separated by plus and minus signs. Okay? So I have 2 terms here. This term and this term. What's the GCF of those 2 terms? It's always what's in parentheses, x minus 1. So I factor out that x minus 1. Notice I took it out right here. I still bring down the 3. I take out the GCF of x minus 1 right here. When I take this x minus 1 out here, what am I left with? 3x. That's why you 3x right there. When I take this x minus 1 out, what am I left with? Just the -1 right there. And so here's my final answer. 3 times the quantity x minus 1 times the quantity 3x minus 1. Now, in case you did not, or you forgot to take that 3 out up here, you're going to be dealing with bigger numbers, and you'd end up with a 3 still in 1. You might have had a 3x minus 3, or you had a 9x minus 3, which still means you had a 3 in one of these binomials that you need to factor out because you forgot to take it out up here in your first step. That's why I made this note down here. You should always ask yourself if either binomial still has a GCF in it. If it does, I need to take it out. Otherwise, you're not completely done. You must factor it out. And like it says, it means you did not take the full GCF out in step 1 like you should have. You can still get the right answer, but you need to always ask yourself, is there a GCF I can still take out of here in case I didn't do it correctly in step 1 or didn't take the full GCF out. Let's say the GCF ended up being a 6 and you took out 3. You only thought 3 was a GCF. Well, there's still going to be a 2 left in one of those because 3 times 2 is 6. So there's still be a 2 left in one of those that you still have to factor out in the last step anyway. So always check when you're done, is there GCF in either one of the two binomials that you still have to take out? In this case, there is not, and so we're done. How can I guarantee I'm right? If I multiply this back together, I will get what I started with, the 9x squared minus 12x plus 3, as it states right there. And there is the AC method. All right, have a good day.